Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, I want Patrick Graham to be the Las Vegas Raiders defensive coordinator in 2024, no matter what. Today's show is presented by Panda Supps, and right now, Panda Supps has got their best deal of the year. Use code Black Friday for 30% off at pandasupps.com. That link's going to be available to you guys down in the comments and down in the description. If anybody's like me that, let's be real, sometimes you pack on a few pounds during the holidays. With Panda Supps' workout supplements, I'm telling you, they're going to help you slim up in all the right areas. So on today's show, I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to say that Patrick Graham deserves to be the Raiders DC in 2024, no matter what. And the reason why I'm saying that, the reason why I feel like I have to make this point is because when you bring in a new head coach, usually, right? When you bring in a new head coach, that usually means that they're going to bring in their own OC. They're going to bring in their own DC. And if Antonio Pierce is named the new head coach, I think that they end up keeping Patrick Graham. But if they decide to not keep Antonio Pierce and they decide to go with another candidate, I'm telling you what, whoever that head coach that they bring in, they better keep Graham, because if they don't, then they're not paying attention to how much better this Raiders defense has been. So Graham was hired in 2022 by Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. I can remember going live and we celebrated because I was a big fan of Graham. I was a big fan of his overall defense. I thought he was a very intelligent coach, and I know at the beginning of 2022, there were some bumps in the road, right? Let's call it what it was. There was definitely some bumps in the road. But right now, for the first time in a very long time, this Raiders defense looks legit. And this Raiders defense has been playing outstanding football for not just this season and not just with Antonio Pierce at their helm, but they were also playing some pretty damn good football last season as well. And if you don't know that, maybe you don't watch this show, or maybe you were sleepwalking, or maybe you just follow the narrative that the Raiders defense has always been bad. I'm telling you right now, what this guy has been able to do with the talent that he's been given is not getting nearly enough of attention, and I'm trying to change that. So here's your opportunity. You call the shots. Do you want Patrick Graham back next season with the silver and black as their defensive coordinator? If the answer to that is yes, type some PGs down below. If you're like, Mitch, I want to look for a new defensive coordinator, that's fine. I want you to type nah. Patrick Graham back in 2024. My answer, I think it's pretty obvious. The Raiders would be dumb to move on from Patrick Graham after the season. Not only for what he's been able to do this year, but the player development aspect is another huge, huge reason why I want him here. When you think about the amount of different defensive coordinators that the Raiders have had over the past 5-6 seasons, and finally this team has found a DC that now they're going into the second year. Look at how much better these players are playing in year two. And just imagine if they actually did something in the offseason to build around the defense. I want Patrick Graham on this roster. So coming up here on the show, presented by Panda Supps, 5 reasons why the Raiders should keep Patrick Graham as their defensive coordinator next year. I also see Daniel Capskeen and the El Loco down in the comments saying, get those likes up. If you love the silver and black, and if you want Patrick Graham here, click that like button. For nonstop Raiders videos all year long, plus it's 100% for free. I know a lot of times when I speak to, I'll say, the older demographic, shout out to my dad, who also, for those of you watching this live, turned 64 today. Happy birthday to him. When I say subscribe, some people are like, I'm not paying for that. Here's the thing, you don't have to. You can click subscribe. If you don't like what you see after a week, you can unsubscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing. But if you find yourself looking for a podcast, or if you find yourself looking for something to watch, listen to, maybe while you're taking a walk, while you're in the shower, doing some chores around the house, I want to take this opportunity to say, clean around the house, make wifey happy, and also learn about the Raiders a little bit. It's a win-win, plus it's free. All right, here we go. The Raiders, why they should keep Patrick Graham. I got 5 reasons here on today's show. You see this statement here? It's kind of it almost doesn't even want to come out of my mouth. The Raiders defense is good. The Raiders defense has been playing well. And when you look at a lot of the numbers here, yards per game, 21st. Passing yards per game, 11th. Rushing yards per game, 27th. Points per game, 13th at 20.5. And then takeaways, they have 14, which is more than what they had last season. But the problem is this. Some people look at these numbers right here, okay? They look at these numbers right here, and it does not paint the proper picture because the Raiders' defense has played a lot better than what these numbers show. In fact, the Raiders' defensive stats are misleading because of how bad the offense has been. Las Vegas is 30th in plays per game. This is on the offensive side of the football. And tied for last in turnovers. Patrick Graham is doing all this despite Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler's focus on improving their offense this offseason. So again, think about how much money the Raiders had this offseason, how much money they spent on Jimmy Garoppolo and a lot of the offensive pieces, how they had 12 draft picks, and how, yes, I get it, they took Tyree Wilson in round 1, but after that, a lot of those other draft picks on the defensive side of the football, let's face it, have been a disaster. They've been a hit and a miss, right? Byron Young's not even playing. Jacorian Bennett's been absolutely terrible, and a lot of the other players are just being healthy scratches week in and week out. So, knowing how bad the offense has been and how many short fields that this Raiders defense is going up, plus how much they're on the field, those numbers don't do it justice. The Raiders might have a top 10 defense, and Patrick Graham deserves a lot of credit for that. Let's go to this one. A huge improvement in year 2. What I like to see from my coaches is, how does the team look in the second year? How does the team look in the third year? Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? It is clear as day that this Raiders defense is way better in year 2. They understand the vocabulary. They understand their assignments. Like, you got Trevon Merrick in his second season. He's been really good. Malcolm Kuntz getting his run finally. He's been a lot better. The amount of players in this second year, Nate Hobbs has been better this season, going back looking the way that he did when he was a rookie. Like Robert Spillane, what he's been able to do. Again, that's more of just, I think, him being the right fit overall and finding those players that take on that Raider personality. But Graham in 2023 compared to 2022, total yards per game, improvement. Passing yards per game is the biggest one here, a massive improvement. Sure, the rushing yards per game is a little bit of a down, but I'm probably going to blame Dave Ziegler, and I'm probably going to go out and blame Josh McDaniels for not putting any concentration on the defensive line. At points per game, Raiders, much better. Takeaways, again, already more than what they had last season. The bottom line is this. Patrick Graham was not given a lot of talent this season. He wasn't, but he has done a phenomenal job to get this unit to play together, to get this unit to understand their assignments. And when you look on paper, there is nobody out there that wears silver and black that rocks the Raiders. Hell, I bet you if you were to ask a lot of the Raiders players, do you think that your defense would be playing as well as what it is right now, considering of what the Raiders did in the offseason? The answer to that is no. Patrick Graham deserves a lot of credit. The Raiders players deserve a lot of credit. And I know we're sitting up here saying I'd run through a wall for Antonio Pierce. I know a lot of those Raiders players would run through a wall for Patrick Graham. The Raiders players are finally starting to learn a defensive system. Why would you change it on them? Because it's working. And if you don't think it's working, you're not watching what I'm watching. Also, if you don't think that Panda Supps products work, it's because you've never tried them. I want everybody that just feels like, you know what, maybe I need some brand new protein. Maybe I need some pre-workout to motivate myself to get in the gym a little bit more. Well, right now, Panda Supps is offering their best deal that they've ever offered. Use code Black Friday for 30% off at pandasupps.com. I request and I encourage you to try their brand new protein. The mint chocolate chip tastes just like mint chocolate chip ice cream. And then their cinnamon toast crunch tastes like the milk that you would get from the bottom of a cinnamon toast crunch bowl. Like, you're going to eat it, and you're almost going to be like, I don't understand how this is that healthy for me. And not only is it healthy for you, it's 30 grams of protein, about 140 calories, no added sugar, like 1 gram of sugar, if that. And then Sinister, their brand new pre-workout, I have to work out in the morning, okay? And sometimes getting up in the morning after a crazy watch party, after doing whatever, it's not that easy. Yeah, I love being able to take my dog Chuck on a walk, but it's the now I got to go to the gym. You take some of that Sinister pre-workout, you are ready to freaking go. On top of that, if you can see, for a limited time, they're also going to throw in, if you spend over $50, okay? They're going to throw in a shaker, and I believe that's also a carrying pack there. So, and a free bag. So there you go. $50 spent, 30% off, best deal of the year. Shout out to Panda Supps for sponsoring the Raiders Report. All right, let's go to the next reason here why they better keep Patrick Graham next year. The defense showed flashes last season, and I do think that the Patrick Graham hype would be a lot better if people actually sat back and remembered or looked at how good the Raiders defense played at the end of last season, because it's not being talked about nearly enough. And I get it. Week 17, Week 18, the Raiders were bad defensively. Do you know why? If you go back and you watch those two games, look at how many of those defensive starters did not play. how they were rolling out practice squad guys, multiple practice squad guys. And when you're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers, you're going to struggle defensively. However, from weeks 11 to 16, the Raiders defense was allowing 18.3 points per game. That was second best in the NFL behind only the San Francisco 49ers, who at the time, and still do, have one of the best defenses in the league. So from weeks 11 to 16, when that defense was healthy, they started playing like a top 2 defense. And now this season, you can see it. It's a very good defense. For them to slow down Miami the way that they did in week 11 speaks volumes. For them to hold the New York Jets, I get it, it's the Jets, to not a touchdown. You're holding an NFL team to not a touchdown, speaks volumes. To what they did against the Giants, I get it, it's the Giants, speaks volumes. You go back and you look at a lot of these other games this season, when the Raiders weren't scoring 20 points, that defense was still showing up, despite the offense not being able to move the football, despite all the turnovers. This defense is playing a lot better than what they are getting credit for, and I'm here to say you need to pay attention, and you got to give your flowers to the defense. The last two more here, the Raiders players like them a lot, and from the guys that I talk to on the defensive side of the football, Patrick is like this. He's like almost like the opposite of Antonio Pierce, where Antonio Pierce is going to like, hey, man, he's the talker, he's this, he's that. Patrick Graham's more of a laid-back type of dude, which, you got to have that balance. But the reason why players respect him is because he knows what he's talking about, and he's a very, very good teacher. So one of the players that I talked to is a fan favorite, and he always just talks about the fact of how great of a teacher Patrick Graham is. You can know X's and O's. It's easy to know X's and O's, at least I hope so, if you're an NFL coach. But can you break plays down? Can you help teach other players their assignments? Like, you're supposed to go here on this play. You're supposed to go here on this play. If it's man, you do this. If it's zone, you do this. I don't want you to think on this play. I want you to pin your ears back, get after him. If you see this look, I need you to drop back. A lot of coaches don't have that ability, but the good ones do. And Patrick Graham has that ability to be a great teacher. If you go back and you watch my videos when the Raiders hired him, that was one of my number one things that I said about Graham. He's a great teacher. And you combine that great teaching aspect, you combine that with a Raiders defense led by Max Crosby, Robert Spillane, guys who just go balls to the wall all the time, and then you add that to somebody like Antonio Pierce, who has that player background, who has that coaching background, who has that I'm going to run through a wall for you background. That is a great, great pairing. I got one more reason coming up here on the show, but if anybody ever wants to interact with me outside of YouTube, there's 4 places that I think that you can probably do it. One, you can always hit me up on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Mitchell Renz 365. Same thing with IG. Locals, I go live every single Wednesday. RaidersReport.locals.com. You can join there. And I've had recently some people asking me for some birthday wishes for, parents. The holiday season's right around the corner, and if you don't know what to get your husband, you don't know what to get your son, you don't know what to get your wife, you don't know what to get anybody that watches this show, hit me up on Cameo, at Mitchell Renz 365. Yes, you can get me. However, though, you can't wrap me up.
It's a Mitch in a box.
Da-da-da-da. Best Raiders defense in a long time is why the last reason. Also, Mitch in a box. It's not a bad Halloween costume. I'll try it. I'll try it out with Alex, see if she likes it. But this has been the best Raiders defense in a long time, and why would you go away from that? Like, the Raiders fans, the nation, has been begging, and I mean begging for a good defense for a long time. And the fact that the Raiders are allowing 20.5 points per game right now, it is the lowest points that they have allowed since 2002. Since 2002. So you're telling me we're going to move on from that? Like, again, I don't know what the Raiders are going to do with their defensive coordinator spot. And the reason why I felt like I had to make this video is because if they bring in a new head coach, that new head coach usually changes up the regime. They change up, they bring in their own guys. All I'm saying is this: if it's Antonio Pierce, you better keep Patrick Graham. And if it's Antonio Pierce, I anticipate that it will be Patrick Graham. But if they decide to go another direction, if they decide to hire a Ben Johnson, a Jim Harbaugh, I don't care who it is. I don't care what your coaching pedigree is. I am a big believer in if it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. And right now, for the first time in a long time, this Raiders defense is not broken. In fact, it's running really well. So whoever the head coach is next season, you better keep Patrick Graham.